Hello and welcome. Well, it's the biggest night of the year in Hollywood. The ceremony for the 91st Academy Awards, better known as the Oscars, is well underway. Mahershala Ali has won his second Best Supporting Actor Oscar in 3 years, this time for Green Book. The first award of the night, Best Supporting Actress, was won by the American Regina King for her performance in If Beale Street Could Talk. Well, our very own Tom Brooke is there at the Dolby Theatre for all of the latest. Tom, what would you say are some of the biggest awards already won?
Well, I think one of the most significant awards.
And more news coming out of the Oscars in Hollywood. Of course, we're keeping you up to date here on BBC News. BlacKkKlansman has won adapted screenplay. BlacKkKlansman has won adapted screenplay. That's for Charlie Watchell, David Rabinowitz, Kevin Wilmot, and of course Spike Lee. And that film is up for several awards tonight. But it's one adapted screenplay. It's got an Oscar here at the Academy Awards on BBC News. But do stay with us on BBC News. Still to come, Oscars in black and white. We take a look at how diverse this year's award nominees and winners are. Let's just bring you some breaking news now. Coming out of the Oscars, we're hearing Best Original Screenplay. The award has been awarded to Green Book. Green Book for Best Original Screenplay coming out of the Oscars now. That ceremony well underway in Los Angeles Dolby Theatre. It's Hollywood's biggest night of the year, the culmination of the award season, and Green Book is winning Best Original Screenplay. So very good night for Green Book there. We also saw the Best Supporting Actor coming for that film as well. Of course, we'll keep you up to date with all the wins coming out of the Oscars on BBC News. Well, let's get more on the Oscars now. From Beverly Hills, we can speak to Jaqueline Coley. She's an editor at popular film review website Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you so much for your time, Jaqueline. What would you say about whether this is a good night for diversity?
I think it's an excellent night for diversity. I mean, if you look at the wins this evening, I mean, we made history off the get with Black Panther. You had Ruthie Carter and Hannah Bleekler winning for production and costume design. Simply amazing. There's only 3 women who have won an Oscar outside of the acting branches, and 2 of them were awarded tonight.
I remember a time not very long ago at all when people were saying Oscars so white. There was a lot of criticism. How have the Oscars managed to change then?
Well, it really started with Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaacs. When she became Academy President, she sort of took the mantle to diversify the membership ranks and add new members, both from the international branches, add more people of color, adding more women. And that work is finally showing fruit. After 3 years of this infusion of diversity in the Oscar ranks, you have films like Black Panther nominated for Best Picture, the very first superhero film nominated for Best Picture, and you have wins for films like Green Book, Black Panther, BlacKkKlansman, even in the shorts category, Period, End of Sentence, Bow, and Skin, all of those center on people of color or their stories.
But there's still been some criticism in terms of diversity. Some people have been talking about no female Best Director being nominated. Why is that?
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity with the female director branch. I will say that the director branch in general is a very tough category. I think that is the next step when we talk about where the Academy needs to go forward. The Independent Spirit Awards, which is sort of like a sister award show to the Oscars, they had 3 female filmmakers nominated for their Best Feature, and I think even all 3 of them could have been nominated for the Oscars. I think that's where the page will turn going forward. We did have Greta Gerwig last year for Lady Bird, but there's still only 2 women who've been nominated at this point. Her and for Zero Dark 30. That's the only 2 we've had.
And how can the Oscars actually change that? I mean, they seem to have managed to change things with the African-American films being nominated, the actors, but it still kind of has a woman problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things where the gender norms between the Academy membership is still very staggeringly different. I think it's still 71% male as opposed to it used to be 77% male. Barry Jenkins in his acceptance speech last night essentially talked about it, and Regina King talked about it in her Golden Globe speech. If just 30% of the people in that room tonight, if the gatekeepers, the publicists, the lawyers, the studio heads, if they will just commit to working with at least 50% women and female directors over the next 5-10 years, that will definitely change those statistics, but it has to start happening. Currently, if you look at a film festival like Sundance, 66% of the films in competition are made by women, but they only equal 4% of the studio films that are making it to the box office each year. So there's a big disconnect between making films and then actually getting to audiences.
It's a pretty good night for Roma so far. It's a Netflix film. Is that kind of a big upset and a big surprise?
Not actually. I mean, I think it speaks to the changing of the guard currently with the Academy. Having a film like Netflix, a film like Netflix's Roma, which doesn't have a traditional linear box office release, it's a film that you can see on streaming services. This is a change, and there's a significant portion of the Academy that is not exactly 100% okay with the idea of a streaming service winning Best Picture, but it's on track to do so. It's already picked up two wins, and it's looking to pick up at least 3 or 4. So I think it's going to be a good thing for Roma and hopefully for Alfonso Cuarón, because it's a beautiful movie.
We've been hearing about how audiences have been going down for the Oscars ceremony. People aren't necessarily watching. And there's also criticism that sometimes the arty films win and maybe the big earners are left out. Does the Oscars have a problem going forward in attracting those young audiences and bringing the changes?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. I mean, overall, award shows have been losing viewership, and the Oscars is still the most highly viewed award show by far. It's one of the second most highly viewed award shows of the year, second to our Super Bowl. So there's a little bit of symptom of just changing viewing patterns. As far as box office winners, look at the 3 films nominated for Best Picture. You have Black Panther, you have Bohemian Rhapsody, and A Star is Born, all 3 of which grossed over $200 million at the box office. I think that's going to make people tune in, and I think it's only going to be a matter of time, maybe even tonight, where they start winning. I mean, Black Panther's had a pretty good night so far.
They have had a good night so far, and there is more to come. Jaqueline Coley, editor at the popular film review website Rotten Tomatoes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we've been covering the Oscars for you here on BBC News. An original score has just been handed out. A win for Black Panther. Another win this evening. Ludwig Göransson has won original score for Black Panther. So they've done quite well tonight, but there is still some of the major categories coming up yet. Best Director, Actor in a Leading Role, Actress in a Leading Role. We're still waiting for all of that. But in case you've missed some of the earlier awards, we've heard from the Mexican filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón, who's won a couple of awards for Roma, Best Cinematography, and Best Foreign Language Film as well. It's a black and white drama about a Mexican family and their live-in maid. And of course, many other winners as well. It's been a good night for some people there at Hollywood. We'll keep you up to date here on BBC News.